In the words of Andrew Jackson, all the rights secured to the citizens under the Constitution are worth nothing and a mere bubble, except guaranteed to them by an independent and virtuous judiciary. All the rights secured to the citizens under the Constitution are worth nothing and a mere bubble except guaranteed to them by an independent and virtuous judiciary. Words of Andrew Jackson, which is nothing but true. In this video, we are going to discuss the independence of judiciary in India with respect to the Chief Justice of India being the master of rooster and transparency in case allotment. The Chief Justice of India, being the head of the Supreme Court, has extensive powers in the form of original, appellate and advisory jurisdictions. The rooster system of case allotment lies under his authority. The word rooster in the contemporary world is defined as a system to allocate different tasks to all the members in order to achieve high efficiency. In the context of the topic, the allotment of cases by the judiciary system to the judges and benches has to be under the control of some decision-making authority. This decision-making authority lies with the Chief Justice of India. The issue we talk about is regarding the misuse of this authority of decision-making for any reason whatsoever. Firstly, why exactly is judicial independence important in the constitutional democracy of India? To start with, it is the foundation of law and democracy, preventing the executive and the legislative from infringing the rights and privileges provided by the Constitution. Moreover, to ensure that the
Part 5 of the Constitution of India deals with the Union Judiciary, which is the independence of judiciary. According to Part 4 of the Constitution of India, the states have been asked to keep the judiciary out of politics. This is to maintain neutrality. The independence of judiciary ensures that the powers of parliament, the state legislature and executive are properly distributed and there is a balance between the demands of individuals and norms of the society. Independence in the judiciary starts by appointing judges of the court, and there are several articles, namely 124, which deals with appointment of judges of Supreme Court, and Article 214 to Article 231, which deals with the appointment of judges in High Court. The President can appoint all judges only after proper consultation with Chief Justice of India, the Governor of the state, and Chief Justice of High Court. Article 145 of the Indian Constitution empowers the Supreme Court to create its own rules for regulating court practice and procedure with the presidential approval. To protect the independence of the judiciary, the judges must be given job security in various dimensions, particularly after retirement, which must include their leaves, pension, housing facilities, conveyance, allowance and family pension, and most importantly, after retirement medical facilities. The powers of allocation of the rooster system are essentially exercised by CJI in two ways. The listing procedure is controlled by CJI through the registry, and he first selects the cases that will be heard. Second, the CJI uses authority by creating the rooster in two different ways. One, by allocating seats based on subject, and two, by allocating seats based on issue. The former method of allocation refers to routine allocation on the basis of subject matter. The problem in this case is that the CJI, who acts on behalf of the whole Supreme Court, has exclusive authority over rooster allotment based on predetermined principles, allowing him to list matters at will from vast case files and from benches by selectively choosing judges on his choice from a diverse pool.
January 12, 2017 is a date earmarked in judicial history, an event that witnessed four senior-most sitting judges of the Supreme Court of India publicly raising concerns about the structural flaws regarding the functioning of the administrative division of the Supreme Court. The Chief Justice, they felt, was not working independently and was using his privilege as the master of the rooster to assign important cases to specific, reliable judges in a way that predetermined their outcome to the satisfaction of the government. The four of us are convinced that unless this institution is preserved and it maintains its equanimity, democracy will not survive in this country. Justice T. Rameshwar, the second most senior judge, after the Chief Justice told reporters. The unusual protest by the country's most senior judges marked the apex of a simmering turf war with the government, which had been trying to end the collegium's monopoly in judge-related matters by instituting a panel called the National Judicial Appointments Commission (NJAC), designed to give the executive a say in judges' transfers and appointments. The NJAC Act was the first piece of legislation that the Modi's government steered through the parliament after he took office in 2014. But the Supreme Court upheld the collegium system and struck down the NJAC Act. But the story did not end there. The after effects of this decision could be felt within the walls of the Supreme Court for years after. As a result of Justice Chelameshwar's sole dissent in the NJAC case, he was not made a part of 10 subsequent constitution benches during the tenure of Justice Thakur as the Chief Justice. Further, during the tenure of Justice Mishra, Justice Chelameshwar, who was the second senior judge, never got a chance to sit on the constitution bench. Instead, the prominent constitution bench cases were heard most often by Justice Chandrachud and Justice Khanwilkar, although they were 18th and 17th on the seniority list. The rooster system is uniquely capable of adversely affecting even the independent-minded judges, owing to the fear of possible exclusion from the constitution benches in future if the outcome is not in line with the Chief Justice's notions. We now know that courts are dependent on governments both for the implementation of their orders and the resources needed for their sustenance. Especially when the courts are losing legitimacy in the eyes of citizens, governments can bring judiciary into line using blackmail, withdrawals of favors, and threats of funding cuts. Balancing legal principles with the government's sensitivities as a way of judicial self-preservation is thus built into the system. Nobody probably understood this better than Ranjan Gogoi, one of the 4 protesting judges at the peak of 2018 tussle between the executive and the judiciary. Gogoi was soon to take over as the next Chief Justice. By the time he finished his stint at the top of India's judicial pyramid, the collegium had become far more collegial towards the government's preferences for judges in its recommendations for transfers and appointments. Following this was the controversial sexual harassment case in which Chief Justice Gogoi initiated the proceedings against himself by constituting a bench and presiding over it in outright violation of natural justice principle.
The Supreme Court has repetitively emphasized that the master of the rooster system establishes objective criteria which the Chief Justice must consider when assigning cases to benches. These criteria involve judge's area of expertise, the status of pending cases, and the judge's ability to handle a case. Since the Chief Justice can assign cases based on other criteria as well, these cannot be considered as concrete standards. If the Supreme Court judges began selecting cases on their own without consulting the rooster, the administration of justice, and by extension, the independence of the judiciary would suffer. One of the remedies proposed by us is to fully automate and computerize the process of assigning cases to benches using stratified data sampling. Here, the software would be impenetrable because the user, which would be the Chief Justice of India, will only be able to enter raw data and not manipulate the assignment output. The raw data would also pertain to the above mentioned criteria for all the 34 judges which were present in the Supreme Court and could only be modified or updated in event of changes during their tenure. These criteria would be multiple strata that would filter out a couple of judges, with one of these being randomly assigned to the case. If every requirement is satisfied except for the judge's availability, the software will also offer the next best allocation as a backup. After this is completed, the computer must operate automatically and keep sending the matters based on how it interprets the results to the benches. The rooster system, which would be now reduced to a click, would be carried out solely by the Chief Justice of India in front of the entire panel of judges in order to increase the transparency. Due to the software's inability to account for social factors, if a case social influence on the assigned judge is significant, it may be discussed and changed with the consent of the Chief Justice with a two-thirds majority of the panelists. However, in politically sensitive cases, the Chief Justice, who is in charge of the rooster, has the authority to keep the cases that have been identified as sensitive by the Supreme Court registry. As a result, this automated process would promote transparency, keeps checks and balances on the mechanism, and additionally safeguard the public's trust. We would like to conclude this presentation by quoting Sri Arun Jaitley, who had once said, "The temptation of post-retirement appointments influences pre-retirement judgment. This is a serious threat to the independence of the judiciary, which is the foremost requirement for its effectiveness." We would like to leave you with an important question to be thought over, expressed perfectly by this Latin phrase implying, "Who will judge the judges?"